What's up guys, this is Prez. As the Premier League season comes to a close, there are winners, there are losers, but there are also those who have death-defying escapes on the last day of the season. This is Kick, and these are the top 5 insane last-minute relegation escapes in Premier League history. To be clear, we're only dealing with escape acts that happened on the very last day of the season. So Leicester and their miraculous turnaround in 2015 and Wigan's highly unlikely survival in 2012 aren't featured here. Let's kick it off with number 5. It's West Brom's incredible Harry Houdini act in 2005. These days, the Baggies tend to be found in and around 8th place, but in that season, they were 8 points away from safety and rock bottom at Christmas. Back then, no team had ever survived being in last place over the holidays. Brian Robson's side were still bottom on the final day, having won none of their previous 6 games. Things weren't looking good. They had to win their home game with Portsmouth and pray that other results went their way. The Baggies did their part with a 2-0 win, but with only 9 minutes of the season remaining, relegation rival Crystal Palace were beating Charlton 2-1. That result would have saved Palace and relegated West Brom. But with seconds left to spare, Charlton equalized and the Baggies were saved. As the home fans of the Hawthorns celebrated on the pitch, they were joined by traveling Portsmouth fans. West Brom's survival also meant that Pompey's fierce rival Southampton were relegated, and they were pretty happy to take that L. That season, the Baggies finished on 34 points, the lowest ever tally for a Premier League team to survive the drop. We go back to the year 2000 for number 4 and the impressive escape of Bradford City on the final day. So the Bantams' debut in the Premier League season didn't go that great. They dropped down to 17th in week 4 and spent the vast majority of the season in the relegation zone. They lost 7 of their final 10 games, conceding 25 goals in the process, making survival look pretty impossible. To make matters worse, on the final day of the season, they had to visit Anfield, where they needed to beat a Liverpool side that had to win to qualify for the Champions League. Against all odds, a header from defender David Weatherall secured Bradford a 1-0 win, meaning Wimbledon slipped down and were relegated in their place, and Liverpool were denied their Champions League spot by one of the worst teams in the league. Number 3 brings us to the 1990s, when Southampton were constantly flirting with relegation, and they came closest to the bottom on the final day of the 1996-1997 campaign. Saints fans might remember that season for the legendary 6-3 win over Manchester United, in which Alex Ferguson's side changed their kit at halftime because they claimed their grey away kits were invisible. Sure they were. And there was the moment where they signed the legendary Ali Dia, a player who claimed to be George Weah's cousin, but was so bad he was subbed on and subbed off in his only appearance for the club. But it was a season that was mostly spent in the relegation zone, and they needed a draw at Aston Villa on the final day to ensure survival. They actually lost 1-0, but fate decided it wasn't their time to go down, since relegation rivals Sunderland and Middlesbrough also failed to win. The Saints actually stayed up and finished 16th. How lucky is that? Number 2 takes us to the 2007-2008 campaign, and a team that survived by the skin of their teeth. My favorite escape? Fulham. An all-American squad featuring Casey Keller, Carlos Bocanegra, Eddie Johnson, Clint Dempsey, and Captain Brian McBride won just 1 league game between August and February, and looked pretty certain to be giving up their Premier League status that they had held for 7 years. With 5 games to go, Roy Hodgson's side were still 6 points from safety, but they somehow found enough fight to beat relegation rivals Reading and Birmingham, while snatching a dramatic 3-2 win at Manchester City. On the last day, they went to Portsmouth, knowing that anything except a win would condemn them to the championship. Fulham left it until the 76th minute to get the winner that took them out of the relegation zone, and they ended up surviving on goal difference alone. The following year, Hodgson led Fulham to a 7th place finish and a place in the Europa League, in which they reached the final. Talk about coming back from the brink. And our number 1 last gasp survivor is a team that beat the drop under hugely controversial circumstances: West Ham United in 2006-2007. After a dismal start to the season that saw the Hammers lose 11 of their opening 17 games, the club were bought by new owners, who immediately fired manager Alan Pardew and replaced him with Alan Kirbishley. But things didn't pick up too much, and the East Londoners found themselves 10 points from safety with 10 games to go. Oh, and in those 10 games, they had to play 5 of the top 6 teams. However, they hit form in their run-in and found themselves needing a win at league champions Manchester United on the final day of the season to stay up. They managed to get the vital 3 points, thanks to a goal from new signing Carlos Tevez. But even then, their battle for survival wasn't quite over. The Hammers found themselves in breach of third-party ownership rules when they brought in Tevez and Javier Mascherano from Corinthians. Sheffield United, who were relegated in their place, demanded that West Ham be docked points and sent down instead. But the only punishment the Premier League gave was a £5.5 million fine. But the Blades later won £20 million in compensation from them in a tribunal. But the transfer scandal is still under bitter dispute to this day. So that's our top 5 last-minute relegation survivalists. Who else should make the cut? Comment, like, subscribe. Peace.